Have you ever found yourself reacting to your teen or young adult child in a way that you regret and wondered, why does this keep happening? Or felt like no matter what you try, nothing is actually getting through to them? If this sounds like you're not alone. So many parents are trying to hold it all together while dealing with emotional dysregulation, conflict, and situations that feel completely out of control. Welcome back to Turn the Lens Inward. I'm Lisa Taylor, and I help parents navigate the challenges of raising teens and young adults by focusing on what we can control ourselves. Today, I'm joined by my friend Sheila Marina, who has over 30 years of experience working in family services and her own lived experience as a parent. We're talking about the central nervous system, emotional dysregulation, and the tools that can actually help you shift the dynamic in your home. By the end of this episode, you'll understand what's really happening in those intense moments and how to respond differently. Stick around because we're answering the question, what if the key to helping your child is actually learning how to regulate yourself first? Let's get into the episode. Welcome back to Turn the Lens Inward. And today is an exciting episode because it is the very first time that we have a guest. Let me introduce you to Sheila Marina. She is a good friend of mine and she's a professional. She's also a parent who's gone through something similar as we have. And today we're going to have a really great conversation all around central nervous system, emotional dysregulation, tools, maybe even talk about something exciting that we're doing together that you can also take part in. And yeah, let's just get into it. So, Sheila, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe about your sons?
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks. I'm really excited to be here. It's fantastic to be a part of your show. I love the work you're doing. We're still new into this podcast business, and I'm looking forward to so many more great things. So, as a parent, I have two sons. I have the first child that I had was very, I guess, what you call nowadays neurotypical. Although I wasn't aware that there was any difference at the time until I had my second child. And right from the get-go, I think back, 26 years ago, the maternity leave was 6 months. So then as I went back to work, yes, in the daycare had told me when he was 9 months old that I was going to have problems with this one. And I couldn't believe that was true for a second. My first child was amazing. This could never happen to someone like me.
Mhm.
So as we continued on, I moved him to another daycare when he was 2. They said if I don't have him tested, he'll have to leave. Uh, That testing was pretty interesting. It was just here locally in Durham, and the doctor, by the time I got to the top of the waiting list, he was over 3 years old. And that doctor said, well, in this case, there's really not too much you can do about a child like this. And so as we continued on down the road, he's had many different tests, many different diagnoses. None of them have ever matched. He's 26 years old now, and he's doing exceptionally well now, which I think we have together as parents, you and I have found a lot of strength in the Sash Bear group through the family connections.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. You brought up so many good points right there in your little intro. Um, the difference between what society considers normal and then what is challenging or not typical. As a parent, hearing something like that, how did you manage that, you and your husband, and you as a mother, and you as a woman who works with family dynamics as a career? how did you deal with this?
Oh, what a great question. Well, it's interesting, eh? Because now that they're adults and we kind of look back, how did we do it all? Um, but I thought, being in children's services and having helped families for many years before I gave birth to this boy, um, you just figure that you're equipped for things. And then when you find out you're not, you begin doing research little by little. You take baby steps towards, trying different modalities, trying different issues. As parents, I think there was quite a bit of discussion about disciplinary measures,
Mhm.
which eventually, I mean, that did lead to the parents breaking up, which is something I've heard so many times, where the communication between the two parents breaks down because the child's behavior is so dysregulated. And and then another part of your question, you asked, how did dealing with it. So although, I felt very instrumental in doing a lot of research, finding, a lot of different methods and modalities, there was a heavy shame. And
Yes.
the shame was so heavy that it affected every single aspect of my life. It affected the way that I parented my older child, who I guess presented with no problems. Uh, it, um, it really affected how I was in my workplace. So that, before you know a lot of the struggles that you now know, you go to work and you're friendly and happy and cordial, and when you go, you have to sit at a desk, for 8 hours with all of this heavy shame weighing you down. It comes to a point where, as that shame, you tend to kind of go inward. And I know this is turn the lens inward, but I kind of went inward so that I wasn't talking with anybody. I wasn't having any relationships with anybody. And then I become targeted as a person at work who's not communicating. What's going on with Sheila? How come she's not her same self? Well, it's because my child was so dysregulated that if I was beginning to explain it here at work, people can't receive that kind of heaviness.
Right.
So that was a really long way around to say there was a lot of shame.
Yes, and I'm sure every other parent listening here who's going through something similar totally relates to what you're talking about. You I'm gonna jump ahead to something just because it's the right moment.
Sure.
But so you write articles for Brains magazine,
Mhm.
and a few weeks ago, I read one of your articles. And you mentioned the Sash organization, which I've talked about on previous episodes. And you and I have both found solace and respite and value from this organization through the Family Connections program. But remember when you wrote in the article about the Holland uh, video or whatever you had seen? I saw a video. I was shown a video. Can you explain a little bit to us what that is and how that impacted you?
Thanks so much for bringing that up.
Yeah,
I recall actually the first time, and when it was delivered to me, it was in a poem. It was we read
right,
through.
right.
So I hadn't seen any video about it, but as people, coming together, they're preparing for a trip to Italy, and they get all of the travel books and the maps for Italy, and they check out all the beautiful sites that they're going to go see, and they take Italian lessons to be able to speak and to be able to order and to be able to get through the different barriers that might that you might face going to a new country, speaking a different language, and you're fully prepared. You spent months, and then you get on the plane and you're ready to go. And when the plane lands, you hear the pilot say, "Welcome to Holland." And Holland, you say, "How am I in Holland? I prepared for Italy. I have all the travel books for Italy." It's emotional, isn't it?
It is very, very emotional.
And
Yeah.
and and how am I here in Holland? I didn't sign up for this. But as you get off the plane and as you go out into the airport and then you kind of find your way around, you see that although it wasn't what you planned for, there's still many beautiful things that you weren't prepared for, and you can't speak the language and you don't know a thing about it. And yet here you are. And so I just thought how instrumental for us parents who had planned for something very different than what we got. And and now that they're much older, and I believe your daughter maybe not have presented with some issues until she was considerably older.
Yeah.
So you're even newer into all
Yes.
of
It
this.
was kind of a whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that as we notice that actually they can manage, and actually we can manage, and we eventually do learn to speak the language, and we eventually do uh, see their successes in ways that we weren't prepared for, that we didn't plan for. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And also, it was all perhaps intentional for us to learn these new skills that we didn't have, and a new way of thinking and learning how to love unconditionally, and all of the beautiful things that come along with helping your child who's struggling, and helping the family dynamic that's struggling, and making all of these changes that, as I've explained in previous episodes, they trickle up and they trickle down and affect on a broad level all of the relationships that we have, just because we have this child who's taken us to Holland versus where we thought we were going to Italy, right?
Oh yeah, that is so true. and
Yeah,
and so now that kind of we can see that they can manage, they can in then it becomes a little bit less about us, which I think I was talking about the shame, and I think it's because at least, when we were younger, um, it was kind of they'd say, "Oh, it must be the parents.
yeah.
It must be the parents." There was a girl at work who used to say, "Oh, your son just needs a good spanking." You
There's
know?
a lot of different ideologies out there for sure.
Mhm, mhm. And now looking at how could they have managed, because there can be a lot of frustration when you're expecting to be in Italy and you show up in Holland. You may not be responding in the way that you would have if you would have just simply landed in Italy in the first place
Yeah.
without recognizing.
Anger,
Yeah.
confusion,
Mhm.
wanting to give up.
Oh, yeah.
Take me back home. I don't wanna be here in Holland with the windmills.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's such a great metaphor. I love that. So Sashware, tell me a little bit about how you found it and how it was instrumental in changing some things for you and your son.
What a beautiful question, because this it was 2018. I just, by now he's 18 years old, and I find that I just couldn't go back to work. I was off of work. My life was completely unrecognizable, the last 18 years, and, I had spent, well, like I said, kind of researching stuff for him, putting him on waiting lists, getting him to see the right doctor. If only we had the right diagnosis, this time it's going to work. Or, all of those resources that they say are available. And then when you go to get the resources, they're not available. It's been closed or it's been canceled or we're sorry, we're not doing this anymore. Um, and then, I was off and I kind of walked into a local mental health service agency and said, "That's it. At the end of my rope. Either he's going to die or I'm going to die, but someone's going to die today."
Right.
So it was, and I know that there's a lot of parents who can understand what that means, and then there's some parents who will never understand what it is that we're talking about. But it was so beautiful to hear them at the. I'll give them a little plug, by the way, that at Durham Mental Health Services, DMHS. She instantly said, "Oh, have you heard of this place called Family Connections, this Sash Bear?" And it was so interesting because I took all the links, I went home and I looked them all up and I thought, finally, we're with a group of parents who understand what it is that we're going through. And suddenly I wasn't alone anymore. And that I felt was the beauty of Sash Bears, that we're not alone. All of us who landed in Holland,
Yeah.
we can all kind of get together now, and we can't. Nothing anyone had said. Like, I know you mentioned, you heard some of the horror stories or some of the stories in Sash Bear from the other families, and thank you. I'll be very happy to take my own troubles and go home with those troubles, because what you're going through is way worse than what I'm going through. Even though when I walked in, what I thought what I was going through was the worst, and that
Absolutely.
nothing could be worse than what I was going through, until I met the other parents at Sash Bear and I saw what they were going.
Yep.
And so the beauty, and I think you found this too when you said in one of your episodes you had never heard of validation, or,
No,
or you
I
weren't
hadn't.
familiar with it, right?
What's the saying? I'm this many days old when I found out blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, I was old when I found out about validation.
Yeah, yeah. And even when we learn about it, say the actual putting it into practice, when our old response patterns are to uh, really react, it. I'll just give you a little example.
Mhm.
Uh, for instance, when my son used to break the furniture or break off one of the doors off the wall or the door frame, I would react very negatively and very judgmentally. And how dare you? How many times do I have to tell you? How many doors are you going to destroy? When are you ever going to stop? And until it came to, after my uh, that episode, that lesson, I think it's in the first lesson, actually, that validation piece in Sash Bear. Uh, I said, you know what? That makes sense that you broke off the door. So it kind of validated how he was feeling. If I was feeling as upset as you were feeling right now, I would probably put my fist through the door too. And just that's the one that I use a lot when I talk to parents now, because that just kind of, it my response to him changed, so his response changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something about the doors too, I'm just gonna say.
Isn't it? Oh my.
I have replaced a few doors in my day.
Yeah, yeah. And I think
Yeah.
I think the last time we were together, we kind of had a chuckle because, the last time the door was repaired, it was by them. This we didn't repair it
Yes.
this time they repaired it.
Yes. Yes.
And
And you bring up a really good point about the chuckle that you and I today, because our kids are the same age, both born in 99, 26 years old.
mhm,
When you said 18,
mhm.
that's exactly when things were spiraling out of control. So maybe if there's some research out there, it can show that 18 really is a time when things are at the pinnacle. And just the fact that it can get better. That's the whole point of what I'm trying to do here with the podcast is to bring hope that if you can turn the lens inward and look at what can I control? What can I do? And not concentrate so much on the anger, the emotional dysregulation, the broken doors, and slow things down a bit and take on some tools for ourselves that can really turn things over to the point where you and I now sit together and we look at each other in disbelief. How can we be here with things being this good?
Thank you.
Yes. So no matter where you are, our listener, and I didn't mean to be disrespectful with us saying, "Oh, the doors, ha ha ha." But there might and there can come a day in your life where you will laugh or look back with memories and think, "Ah, we've come to the other side now." So I can't even honestly remember most of the bad things. I remember a lot of the good moments. The moments where we did have a crazy shouting match at one another and then used a tool and it worked and then ended up with emotion of support and love and helping one another versus it being, we're going to be calling the police in a second. So I just wanted to say that as I was thinking about us looking back at it with different perspective than someone who might be looking at it right now going through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, um, I may lose that initial point, but what I recall in one of your episodes where your daughter wrote you a letter
Yeah, the last
after,
episode, yeah.
yeah, after your communication together as parent and child began to improve, then she was able to improve and to be able to express herself. And what I just loved when I heard that. And so, back to my point that as things do get better, like you said at the beginning of this, that it's almost like you can't remember when, like the bad times. And it's so interesting because I do remember, I think may have been maybe 11 or 12. And there was a lot of kind of struggles in the parents' relationship. And I had a lot of negative feelings towards this boy. And I said there is not a chance. I mean, obviously you can't see into the future, but I anticipated that I will never ever love this child. I can never ever see myself having a happy day, relaxing, sitting down with this child because the hell is so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's so funny? I was thinking about this last week. Um, there's I don't even and he said this to me as well, he doesn't even recognize that boy anymore.
Right.
And the same, like, the amount of love and joy that I experience from our relationship now, and it's something that I never believed was possible. And so that to your point, as parents are heavily, deeply right in the middle of it, and they're desperate and they don't know what to do, and there are the police coming and children's aid and the principal of the school and different organizations, everyone's passing their, I guess, passing their judgment, but I guess everyone's kind of handing in what they think you should do. There is going to come a day when the sun is going to come out, and there is going to come a day when you won't feel those feelings anymore. That as you create the new neural pathway and your central nervous system is able to re-regulate, suddenly all of those negative feelings, all of those hardships, all of that shame, as it falls away from you, then you don't even remember them.
Right. And we are talking to people who are looking for a resource
Mhm.
to make things better, to do the work, to make change happen. So that day will come if you keep at it and you remain patient and you look for the tools and you join the organizations and you share with a friend what it is you're going through and you let go of the shame. But talk to me a little bit more about the central nervous system, because I know you've done a lot of work around that. I know you've written articles around it. You have 30 plus years of working in family services, understanding. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Thanks, thanks. And so, really, the central nervous system will always respond first. Even though we could be the most intellectually smart and aware and conscious person, that central nervous system, that kind of amygdala, that fight, flight, or freeze, will show up instantly in a split second before we even have a chance to to interject our consciousness and our awareness and all of our genius. It somehow falls away once the central nervous system is activated. And a lot of it, those neural pathways, they're strengthened by their response patterns. They're strengthened by the words that we use to describe situations. A lot of the work that I do is around the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is very run by the central nervous system and does not care what the truth is. And because as you know, we could be sitting in a movie theater or even at home watching a heartwarming tale and then feel the emotions, or conversely, looking at something scary. And if we're in a movie theater watching something scary, all of our nervous system is going, "Oh, what's going to happen next?" Oh, and we grip the hands of our seat. And in the big picture, we're just sitting down in a chair. Nothing is happening to us. Yet our central nervous system is responding and reacting, and we have that fear. There was a scary movie I think I saw about a wheelchair being at the top of the stairs, an empty wheelchair that would come down the stairs. And for about 2 years, I couldn't walk up the stairs without thinking about that wheelchair. It was impressed so deeply in the subconscious mind that the central nervous system believed that it was true. So how do we speak to ourselves? What kind of messages are we giving? Am I giving the message that, I must have been a bad parent? I must have messed up somewhere because I have this child who has so many issues. And so then the central nervous system begins to shame and blame, where I could say, I recognize that here's a child who's struggling. Here's a person who's struggling. Here's a person who can recover. In the moment, it seems like recovery is not possible. And and so we choose what we bring into the next moment. And so a lot of the loving kindness affirmations, you know, may I respond calmly. May I send love to the person. May I be strong. May I be calm. Strengthens the central nervous system to then look for measures of being calm, measures of being strong, measures of resilience, recognizing that central nervous system is reacting to what it believes is true, and then give it a new message.
Right.
Yeah.
So I heard something. even just yesterday, about beliefs
Mm,
and what's going on in that programming. And no matter what it is that we tell ourselves, there's a truth, there is a truth and reality. But
yeah,
what we're telling ourselves might not really be the truth. So when we're going through this whole thing with our kids and we're telling ourselves that I'm the reason I must have done something wrong, or this kid is a holy terror, or whatever it is that we're telling ourselves, we start to believe those things. So what I'm hearing you say is change what the mantra is, change what the
mm,
beliefs
mm.
are, make them more positive, make them so that it's going to end up in the situation that is what we would prefer versus what's happening right now.
That is so, so, so true.
Okay.
And that really isn't the and I'm glad that you're hearing more about that because that really isn't the message that we kind of grew up with or the message, people really are nowadays understanding the value of the words that we're saying. So as we're hearing more positivity, we're able to strengthen more positivity. We're able then the central nervous system will begin to look for just those kinds of things that we're thinking about.
I touched on something a couple episodes ago where explaining the baby boomer and the Gen X and the millennial and then the Gen Z. Do you know of any research or any patterns that prove that? Because what you just said is like, that's not how we were taught. And we're really being the change makers, these what are we, Generation X parents of, we don't have millennials, we have Generation Z. Maybe some of us have millennials. I don't know. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Maybe they had kids early, but we're the ones who, by doing this work, by turning the lens inward, we're changing the future.
That is so true. That's why I was so thrilled when I was invited onto this podcast because as two people come together, there's a strength in numbers. And so that through these mirror neurons, through these, there's two women somewhere else or two parents somewhere else having this same conversation. So that the more of us that are coming together, this kind of this shaming and blaming because we have these dysregulated children, then we, like you said, are the change makers. It's very exciting.
It is.
Hmm.
I I saw a post on I'm in a lot of Facebook community groups, moms groups,
Okay.
and this one woman posted about her, I think, 8-year-old daughter being in some type of relationship on one of these internet gaming sites with a 14-year-old boy from the USA. And they caught it in time, and now they're securing internet access and that sort of thing, but reaching out to find out if anybody else had these types of things happen and what to do and deal with it. And so what do you instantly do when you see a post like that? You go to the comments. Right?
Yeah.
What's going on in the comments here? And I did see a woman said 8-year-olds should not have access to the internet. And I just thought, like, at that, like, this, because this is what happens.
Hmm.
And I thought, and I actually responded, I said, your comment is judgment and it's not helping.
Mm.
It offers no value to this woman who's come to all these other mothers to ask for some help. And I said, it's 2026. And let's be the mothers who support one another versus tear each other apart. Because haven't you found over the years, especially everything you've been going through, and when you described sitting at work and not communicating, I felt for you. I
Mhm.
really had emotion for you as this woman sitting there at work not being able to talk because you might break down, or are they going to relate to what I have to say? But I love that we have an opportunity to spread the word of let's do things differently here. Let's change this. Women, let's all come together and support one another. And yeah, you might have done something incorrectly. You may have made an error in judgment. You may have made a mistake. You may have done something absolutely terrible. But that doesn't mean that you can't change today. And then you can't also separate yourself from that guilt that tears you apart in order to be there for your kid
Mm.
because they need you, no matter what age you are, no matter what age they are. Sorry, I'm on a bit of a rampage here, but
Please keep going because I find that so beautiful. We need more of us to come together in less judgmental ways. People who and it's so interesting, even as I was bringing it up myself about me having to show up in the workplace. Um, uh, it was surprisingly, I was really feeling the feelings as well. And or how many days would I just kind of keep my head down and be crying all day long? It, the one thing that I think as moms of these challenging uh, uh, young people, um, you can really cry in silence, eh? Make sure that nobody can hear because there has to be a release. And that sometimes as we share some of the things that are going on at home, you hear the reactions from friends or family or coworkers, and their reactions are so severe that it's kind of a feedback. Oh, I didn't realize how severe this was until I heard how you responded to what it was I was saying.
true.
And that's because what they believe as their trauma and what I believe as my trauma and what we have seen in other parents in our Sash Bear group, there was everyone has their own level of what their trauma is. And remarkably, sorry, just
No,
remarkably
I know. I'm so excited to talk to you about the next thing. Sorry, go.
don't we all get through it though? Don't we all? Most people wake up the next morning and just keep going. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay, so I'm excited to hear what's your next point?
Before I ask you the next question,
Uh,
I agree with you. And when you said the thing about crying in silence, for me, it was not even crying.
mm,
Just, I'm tough. I can handle this.
mhm, mhm.
And then putting more stress on the body and into the central nervous system. And having, for me, it was that severe back pain and shoulder just tense and just not being able to ever calm down. I had to stay in that alert manager mode, right? Yeah. But anyway, let's go. You mentioned the trauma.
Mm,
So, given what you do for a living now, I mean, you still have your career. I still have my career too. We're
mhm.
both working ladies here. We
Yes,
both have the full-time 9 to 5 jobs. And we're really both very good at what we do, and we've done it for a very long time.
absolutely.
But we have other passion projects, such as me with my podcast and you with your Planet of Peace, because of everything that we've gone through and what we've learned and what we can give back. You help other people to release these traumas from the body. And I have been to you, I'm going to say 6 or 7 times, but 4 times with the emotion code.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about what you do. And just to preface this, you might think this is a bit woo woo, but I'm telling you, this stuff is amazing, amazing for helping to release. this trauma and the baggage. So tell us a little bit about it.
Mhm, mhm. And it I have had the response of the woo woo. So some people or they just can't grasp it until the session is over. And when the session is over, they're like, "Oh." I think you and I may have even had this at one of our
And
earlier sessions.
I'm always been the person who's open
Mhm,
to trying anything to
mhm,
make things better.
mhm.
I just am. I don't have to fully believe it or know all the science or anything like that. I don't have to have all the facts. I can try something and discern.
That's true. That is exactly what you said, actually. I
Yeah.
may not, but I'm open to anything. And so just talking about that subconscious mind and how that subconscious mind stores the thing, like, being afraid to walk up the stairs, for 2 years. I mean, granted, I don't think young children should be watching scary movies. I think that that may have had something to do with it. Um, However, once the subconscious mind has something in there that it believes is true, it's going to do whatever it can to make sure that that is reinforced. And so that using this emotion code chart, you can find it online, this emotion code chart, as we allow the subconscious to guide us through the chart, we can find out specifically which emotion is trapped in your subconscious mind, how old you were when it happened, what the circumstances were. We can find out if it's inherited from either your birth mother or your birth father. We can find out how many generations it goes back, how old that person was. And as we find out what it was, we all have meridian energy lines in our body. Everything in this universe is energy, frequency, and vibration, everything. And so that as we then these meridian energy lines in our body, there is a governing meridian, which is a single line of energy that starts at the top loop and goes around to the base of the spine. So as we find these trapped emotions, we can just simply release them, setting that intention to just release that energy. And as once it's gone, we do 3 times for something in this lifetime, it's gone. And so you may not you specifically, Lisa, uh, the person may not notice something immediately. However, what they do notice is going forward a couple of days, a situation arises where normally they would have had some negative reaction. They may have been afraid to walk up the stairs, for instance. Uh, the subconscious mind will not respond like that anymore. And you'll notice, I normally have quite a response to this kind of thing. And then just in another piece there, if it's inherited and we can find out how many generations it goes back, you then heal all of the ancestral trauma, all of the generations. That's one of my favorite things when I find an inherited trapped emotion. If you inherited it from your birth mother, who got it from her father, and goes back 23 generations, originating with an 8-year-old girl who may have been assaulted and had no control over it, we go back to that 8-year-old girl, and all of the generations are healed. And then it carries forward into our young people, into their young people. So it's been a real honor and a real passion for me to be able to do this. One of the Just to quickly, you were mentioning about all of the pain kind of in your um, at one point, you know, I think my dysregulated child was born. He was 3 years old by the time I was walking with 2 canes. It was the only way I could get by because the severe back pain was so bad that my mobility was being impacted. And it was energy healing. It was Reiki specifically that kind of removed a lot of the energy that was stuck because, as you saw, it's really just stuck energy, stuck
Yes.
here on the back of your neck, on your shoulders, in your lower spine. And
Yes.
as that energy moves, whether it's through Reiki, whether it's through, I think we've also, we had a few different modalities together. Um, but this emotion code works every time. I
It's
every time.
fabulous.
Mm.
Like, fabulous. I the 4 times I've done it, epiphanies, and the first time we did it, there was a lot,
Yeah.
and each time we go back to do it again, it gets shorter and shorter and shorter, I've noticed.
Yes. And that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and even the last time we did it, when you were talking about the generations, I think we went back 44 generations,
Mhm.
remember?
Yes, I do.
And that just reinforces my belief about the concept of turning that lens inward and doing that work, trickling up and trickling down. We can make impact in our daily lives, and we can make impact to traumas from centuries ago.
Amazing. Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and how we it really brings us right back to turning the lens inward. It
Yeah.
sure does. It sure does.
Yeah. I think I and it's so hard. I had a conversation with a friend the other night, and we were talking a little bit about the premise of the podcast. And I said, you can't just really say to someone who's going through all of this hell,
Mhm.
oh, well, come and sit on the couch and lay down and let's talk, and it'll make everything better. But it really is what they need to do. And it is so hard to say that to somebody because they're looking for tangible action items that they
Mhm.
can put in place to help the dysregulation, the emotional dysregulation, the violence, the anger, the drama, the addiction, the suicidal attempts, the whatever's going on.
Mhm.
They're looking for something tangible, and here I am saying, "Oh, no, 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 go inside." And I don't want to take away from the seriousness of what that person's going through because you've gone through it and I've gone through it. And we both know in the moment it's real.
It's harsh.
It's hard and it's hard. And you still have to get up every day and go to work and make money and have relationships and have some semblance of a life.
Mhm.
And I have seen many, many parents and heard them say, you basically can't have a life if you're in it for the long haul to there to help your kid. But you and I are here to say, yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can. And let's start walking down that road towards achieving that. And that's such a segue because I wanted to talk about the Sash Bear Walk and this organization that both Sheila and myself and many other parents that I know
Mm.
we're going to be participating. I've registered a team called Turn the Lens Inward. And in Toronto on May 25th, it's a Sunday, we're going to do a walk and we're raising money for Sash Bear because of the fact that it is such an amazing organization and it's helping so many families with DBT, with support, just being there. And they do seminars on all different topics and everything is free.
Having gone through Sashbury, I went through once as a parent, and then I co-facilitated it 3 times. And so just to see not only my own transformation, but every single parent and it's not even just if you have a dysregulated child, you could be a child with a dysregulated parent.
Oh, yes, I did have one of
Ju
those on our group.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
or you could be a husband with a dysregulated wife or a wife with a dysregulated husband.
True.
However, the 12 weeks, the 24 hours, 2 hours a week for 12 weeks, along with the skills workbook, along with the co-facilitators, along with the, the just the semblance of, hey, we're both going through the same thing. Every single person's life in that room improved. Everybody. And so I will talk about Sash Bear. I love that you have this, you're putting this group together. I
Yeah.
love that this walk is
Yeah.
going to be really spectacular this year. And then as a little side note here, my son, who I really didn't see how it was gonna go. He now says that if anyone ever needs to hear something about Sash Bear, he would love to speak up because he said Sash Bear was the group, it was the thing, the catalyst that got him to where he is today.
Yes.
Really, and I think a lot of our young people will attest to that as their parents change, because as we change as parents, our whole world changes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And, to have your kid come up to you and thank you
Mm.
for doing the work, because my daughter has thanked me,
Yeah.
and she's told me how grateful she is for me to have been there for her, and having that happen, it just makes everything so worth it, right? That whole journey, that whole challenge makes it all worth it, and so, yeah, hopefully on May 25th, you can come out and walk with us. I'm gonna have the registration link in the show notes, and, if you can't, at least maybe donate or share with somebody who you think needs this organization. Yeah, and with that, I think it's been a lovely conversation, Sheila, and I think, again, like I told you, we could talk for hours and hours and hours and hours, but we won't put everybody through that. But, Planet of Peace, if you're interested in releasing some trauma or you wanna have a conversation with Sheila about what that looks like, she also does do Reiki. I haven't told my Reiki story, it's pretty wild, one day I'll tell it.
Yeah.
But Reiki is something to help it's doing that part of the work that's not the hard part. Laying on a
Mm.
bed and having energy healing, which doesn't bring anything up, it only offers a positive outcome,
Mm.
that's the easy part of the work. The hard part of the work is making the changes, doing the affirmations, regulating the central nervous system, being emotionally regulated yourself, going to the classes, talking to people. That's the hard work, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Laying on a bed is not a hard thing to do, but the outcome is so brilliant. So, thank you for what you do. Thank you for your talent and your skill. And thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very, very much, Lisa. I love what you're doing here. And as you continue to inspire parents, I will continue to share the message of the beautiful work that you're doing and that we're doing together. I love that we have the team for Sash Bear to support for the walk because people's lives really do change. And sometimes the hardest part is showing up. It is
100%.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
I
so that
remember the first time I went to the walk, I went by myself and I met the people who were organizing it there. But I got on the train and I went and I did it and I felt so good afterwards for doing it. So sometimes it is just a matter of taking that one step, but that one step can lead to so many good things for you and your kids and your struggle and your life and your dreams
mm,
because you're totally worth it.
totally worth it.
Totally worth it. Yeah, baby. All right. Thank you
Thank
so much.
thank you so much, Lisa. This has been a wonderful experience.
And for any listeners who have not yet subscribed, please subscribe to the channel, whatever you're listening to on it, so that you are the first to learn about when the next episode is coming out. And that's it for today. I love you all. Thank you so much. And have a great day.